Hey everyone, my name is Nathan Pay and welcome to another episode of Coffee and Crypto. We have our most esteemed guest, Miles, with us.
Most esteemed.
Absolutely. I thought that would be a good intro for you this time.
I feel esteemed.
Right? So for people who don't know, he's head of our research division at Blu Ocean Games Guild. And just because of the sheer volume of games that we look at, we love having him on to talk about his expertise and kind of get even me up to speed on a lot of the things that we're looking at. That's his job. And what I wanted to talk about today was the Bornless.
I'm so excited.
And this has been something that we've been having a lot of fun doing our own internal play tests with because we're allowed to.
And we play tested with a couple of other guilds too, and the game is just freaky, man.
Yes,
it is really well designed visually and audio. Like, it's really well designed.
So for people who don't know, I'll have the introduction video pop up here on the screen. So definitely go check that out. It kind of gives you a brief rundown of the game, the set, the atmosphere, how it all works. But what I want to kind of talk about today is the update that they just did on their website and the new white paper.
Their white paper, yeah.
And kind of what's to come. Because the moment I took a look at that, my mind was blown. Like, I already knew they had something special. I already knew that the format of the game is unique. It's not something they're copying, right? It's like they didn't take a Web 2 game.
Formula for how it actually plays.
They do, right? So let's talk a little bit about the gameplay first, because that's really kind of what got us all hooked. Right now, there's a 2v2, v2, v2, so it's 8 players in total, 4 teams of 2, and there's 4 starting positions on this map. And basically the way it works is you get a certain amount of incense, and the team that burns the least amount of incense is chased by Orbis.
Yeah, well, the demon. Right now, there's 2 demons. The first one is Orbis, and the second one is Bale.
Yes.
Now, we've never played a game with Bale yet. I don't know how different Bale is from Orbis, but the idea is that they are very scary, and they are there to kill you. And the whole point for them to be there is to A, scare you, and B, to put pressure on the teams. Because ultimately, this is like a last team standing type of game.
And something that they're going to do, they're going to allow teams to summon the demon on other teams.
Yeah,
eventually.
That's a great update for the. So right now in the game, one of the things that I've noticed is that the team that has the demon on them is very easy to see.
Yep.
And so it would be great to be able to summon a demon on some team, and now you can see them all and you can mess with them while they're trying to run away from.
And it'll cost a lot of incense, so you have to be able to afford.
To be able to do that. It's sort of a like risk reward type thing. You can either burn your incense and be protected from the demon yourself, or you could spend your incense summoning another demon on someone else.
And we're a partnered faction. So what we're probably going to be doing over the next couple months is putting together a recruitment program so we can start bringing in more people into the faction, kind of like we've done with a lot of other play-to-earn titles, built alliances or guilds or clans within them.
If they want to join us.
We're going to do the same thing here. But I really like what their Safehouses is and how the factions work. So I think that's the next good thing for us to talk about, because Safehouses are basically their land NFT version.
Yes.
But the free-to-play model of the game, you're going to get a safe house to start with no matter what.
Right.
But if you go the play to earn route, you can upgrade your safe house. You can add different perk stations.
You can add what they're calling interactive cosmetics.
Yep.
And the idea that they showed was a poker table. And I'm like, that sounds amazing. I would love to be able to play a quick hand of poker inside of the
or a dartboard
too.
Yeah,
while you're waiting for your friends to show up or something, or maybe between matches. I think that's really cool.
And I like the perk thing because I think the way they explained it was in the free-to-play version, which is 2 people limited to the safe house, you're limited to 2 perk stations. But if you upgrade and get a different sigil, which is one of the NFTs, that'll unlock a different rarity of safe house, which increases the capacity of your faction,
that's right,
so to speak, but then also will increase the capacity for more of these perk stations. So there's going to be this really cool want to keep progressing in the game. And that was something that I find kind of interesting because they're doing a single token model. But because there's so many things, weapon skins, upgrading your safe house, the NFTs themselves, right? Like your perks, there's so much to spend the incense on.
They talk a lot about how they don't want people using incense as a way to pull value out of the game. I think that to me says that what they're trying to do is get people to get incense and spend incense and to accrue value inside their NFTs.
And it's going to be hard not to want to do that because the further you progress, the better earnings you can get. Like, for example, the raids. The moment I seen that blew my mind. Like at the end of a season, and there's going to be,
there's going to be a huge season boss, which all of the factions will have a hand in taking down, and then the faction or parties that do the most damage will be named the Demon Hunter for that season.
And there'll be all these rewards. So here's an incentive now to take all your earnings, put it back into your safe house, make sure your faction is getting the best perks that they can get, the best bonuses. So I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic for factions and game guilds, especially to try to balance like, well, we want to be in this competitive scene. We need to be reinvesting our earnings back in to be competitive,
to keep up with everybody else. That's right.
So it's going to be even harder to want to take out, where a lot of other play to earn titles, not necessarily saying a 2-token system is bad, it's standard.
It's really good, actually.
But the way that they do it,
system.
It has to. And
the right project, really.
And the token that's usually the in-game token, it is there also to kind of extract for that value. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure that people will want to do that with Bornless too. Yeah, but I just think with the single token model, it's going to be even harder to want to extract. It's going to be like, let's keep leveling up. Let's be the best faction.
Yeah, no, as a party who might want to earn in this game, I would almost thinking about playing the game and building up your NFTs and then finding somebody else who might want to buy your NFTs later, if that's what you're trying to do to get value. But with this game, it's, there's going to be seasons. They have, I think, a 60-month period that they're for earnings to be released, and what that means to me is that there's going to be a lot of content that's going to come out each season over the next few years. And the other thing that they mentioned is that each season will have its own NFT collection released with that season, which means that there's going to be new, fresh things to be getting each season. And so maybe you didn't play last season, but you want to get in the next season. You now have something new and cool to look forward to when you want to play again.
That's right. They talk about the first 8 kind of seasons to kick things off, and it's going to be each of the different individual characters that you can pick up as the NFTs. But we don't know how long the seasons last. And kind of right now, I guess you could say we're in season 1, but when season 2 happens, we don't know. And I kind of like that. I'm sure once the game gets rolling and is launched, it'll be more of a calendared schedule kind of seasons,
so they also talk about earning potential and it being unlocked when you get a season pass.
Yes,
which is pretty standard with most, like I would call them battle pass type economic systems. But this has that battle pass type economic system that's sort of seamlessly blended in with the Web3 thing, which means if people just want to be a standard battle pass player, they're still generating value or for the whole ecosystem. You know what I mean?
Yes.
They're still generating
it feeds
energy,
back to feedback.
It's a feedback loop into the whole system, where if somebody is a Web3 player, then those people who aren't are still helping support the system and thus them, right?
And I think it's going to be interesting the way that they did that with free to play, because as a free to play player, you can buy the battle pass or season pass. The battle pass is what it's called.
Yeah.
That unlocks the ability to earn, but also just owning an NFT unlocks the ability.
Yeah, it's if you own just a Genesis NFT, it comes with what they're calling a lifetime season pass, which basically means as long as you hold that NFT in your wallet, you will have season pass access and be able to earn.
But I like that. It means you don't got to worry about a secondary market. You don't got to worry about buying into the NFTs. If you're just a free-to-play player, you buy the pass. Now you have access to the earnings.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a great way to onboard people.
Yes.
Without having to explain all these different networks and NFTs and OpenSea and all that.
That's the big thing.
People can kind of ease their way into, which I'm sure they're going to want to. Like, especially as a faction, you pretty much have to. You have to understand how that all works.
Consider like the early days of the internet, people were all excited to use it, but they didn't know much about it. They would type in a web page and go to a thing, and it would show them the thing, and that's about as much as they knew.
Yeah.
And now if you ask your average internet user about what they know about the internet, they'll often tell you, well, they know about the different, coding languages and about how things are made and about, uploads and downloads and how that matters and streaming and all this other stuff that wasn't, but because they've been in the system for so long now, they've learned all the tricks of we'll call it the trade.
You bring up an interesting point too, because if you ask most people how the internet works, they couldn't tell you. So it's kind of the same thing with Web3. You don't have to know how everything works. It's the experience that you're getting interacting with it. Can you play a game, have fun, make some money doing it, and enjoy it with your friends? And if the answer is yes to all of those, that's kind of the soup
you've
that's
got
needed.
Confidence, basically. Yeah, that's a big part of confidence. My confidence in a project is like, am I genuinely going to want to play this, whether or not it's for work? Am I genuinely going to want to play this, whether or not it can earn me money?
You know what that makes me think of too is the user-generated content.
Yeah, so that's a big thing. A lot of new Web3 projects are trying to create what I call them ins, but they're trying to create an in for the creative crowd. You know what I mean? So people who are creative, who don't necessarily want to play a first-person shooter game, but they want to be part of the action. You know what I mean? Maybe they can create, and in this game, it's mini games and it's designs for like those interactive cosmetics we were talking about for the safe houses and gun skins and a bunch of other stuff like that. And pending some small guidelines, you'll be able to basically make whatever you like, make it look however you like. So that means that those people who don't, people who like maybe want to make a mini game or have an interesting idea for, you know, like a weapon skin or something like that, but don't necessarily want to be a part of the first person shooter, they can still A, garner some value, and B, have some fun interacting with everybody.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to promote community generated content, because I also like the fact that I think they said every week it'll show like the highest voted or the highest quality through
I think it's each week. Site. It's going to be the highest voted UGC, and I guess the UGC could be anything from like something that somebody designed for a safe house to like a fully generated level that players can play in. And if it is the highest ranked, you'll have the ability to mint it as an NFT and buy it.
Yeah, which is kind of cool.
That sounds pretty complicated to me. I have no idea how they're coding that.
Same here, but it's interesting to think
into an NFT. Like, I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, and I wonder if maybe they'll only be able to do that with skins, and maybe the shooting range mini games or maps.
So imagine you have, you know, a game that runs in Unreal 5, and there's a bunch of rules to sort of how the game plays and a bunch of assets. Well, if you know
4, but 5 or 5, yeah.
Yeah, so imagine, you know, you want to make your game, and you can say, well, this is going to be the base level. It's going to be one of the base levels that they have inside of the game, and then you can place NPCs and you can place different things on that thing. And what I would do is I would have sort of like a save, which would probably be inside of the NFT itself, that would just list all of the different things that are inside of the system and their coordinates on the map and the different, like, I guess,
it's definitely possible.
Dialogues and things like that. It shouldn't be too hard.
It's kind of like the safe house being an NFT itself.
But then you know you would basically be able to buy an experience and go, okay, well, I bought this. I don't know. A good example would be like
it's hard to find an example because it's kind of unique.
Like Defense of the Ancients was its own thing, but if they would have been able to take that thing that they created in Warcraft 3 and mint it as an NFT in Warcraft 3, they never would have had to create their own project to take their IP away, right?
That's right.
So this is basically giving people the ability to create their own IP and it be an amazing thing, but then they can take it later and be like, this is mine. You know what I mean? Which is huge.
I think it is huge. And that kind of gets me thinking about, well, if there's, you know, if we've got the single token system, we've got the factions we've talked about, the user generated content. What about the progression? Like, that is, to me, usually what's most addictive about shooting games in general is there this sense of progression. What am I working towards? What am I building towards? And I kind of hinted at that earlier on in our conversation. I was saying there's so much to use.
In this white paper, they talk a lot about replayability and how important it is, and how important it is to have a game that's actually fun to play and that it isn't. And they actually write this in their paper that it isn't just a clicker game, and that's super important to me. And so replayability, when they talk about that, what they talk about in their paper a lot is their invoking system, which is basically a prestige
which
system,
I think is so cool.
I guess I would call it a prestige system to make it easier for people to understand. But the idea is there's a max level at 666, and as you accrue experience and gain levels, not only can you progress your character, but you can also get cosmetics and get other NFTs and things like that. And so.
And then when you prestige, you unlock all these kind of rarer abilities.
Rarer things that somebody who hasn't prestige might not be able to get.
Maybe new perks, safe house.
One of those things they mentioned is titles. So if you get to level 666 and go back to level 1 and then you get a title, the invoker of something, that sounds amazing to me. That sounds really cool. People will be able to look at me at a distance and go, that guy's invoked.
Also custom banners, I think they mentioned too, kind of like Call of Duty where you have the custom banner.
Now I like that because we are a guild and we're going to want to put our banner in that guild.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Or maybe we have somebody who's creative in our guild who wants to make a guild assets for us, like a guild, you know, put our guild emblem on a pistol or put. That's really the possibilities there are endless. And the value that can be created from that is really well documented, and they know how they're gonna do it. You know what I mean?
You're right. Actually, that kind of leads me to my next point. Is talking about you mentioned the release schedule a little bit, which is really good.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of things don't start till about a year period. It's very common for a lot of projects.
They have big allocation for play to earn, which is
that's what I was just going to mention. Is if you look at the token split. More than 50% is going towards gameplay, basically.
Which is huge.
It's huge. Now, that could be kind of an umbrella of a couple different things. There could be like an in-game staking feature. There could be, you know, a certain percentage is direct play to earn rewards, but that's high for a project. Yeah. So when we seen that, I remember both of us were like, wait a second.
I feel like a big portion of that is going to go towards the user-generated content that will eventually accrue value on the marketplace and be bought and sold by users. Like, that's going to have to be backed, right? So,
and maybe is some of that used for tournaments for the esports thing, and maybe that's why.
That's something that I actually wanted to talk about. These guys are literally in their first build of the game, in the earliest alpha, and they've already had a successful tournament. People had tons of fun.
We were there. It was great.
And the prizes were pretty dang good. So that was interesting to me to note that they did that. And then I went and read their white paper and I've noticed they haven't had their seed round yet, which means they've developed this amazing
That's
minimum viable product without a seed round yet.
Yep.
Which is super huge because that means that people who have not participated in the seed yet going, oh, I played your alpha and it was really fun. They're more likely to participate in the seed round.
That's
And
right.
I feel like this game is going to grow really, really big, really fast because of that.
I think so too. And if you take a look
That's
at
a
the
huge step.
roadmap, and of course things are always subject to change, but we're not looking for, even the incense token to be released until next year, like near the end of next year. So we've got a lot of milestones that they're going to have to hit, the team will, to kind of get to that point. But I love that they're building the community now, kind of like you said, they're building the community. They have a viable product, even though it's one level right now. We're
It's
about
more
to
than
see a new
viable.
build come out on the 24th as well.
Yes, which
So-
will probably include, I think it's going to include another level and like another demon and some new weapons.
Yeah,
some
and
new
by the time this
animations.
is launched, it will already be live, and
Yeah.
I know that just the factions are going to be able to play it, and it'll be what's used for the tournament that's coming up. So this next tournament, there's two. There was one that happened just a little while ago. We got in there.
It was tons of fun.
It was cool,
But it's scary.
and they had the winner got like a gladiator title in their Discord and an NFT prize. But this one is $10,000 prize pool. And what I really liked is how they divvied it up. So there's basically 64 duos that's going to be competing, and everybody gets a little prize, even just for participating. And
Yeah,
I'm
just
like,
for making last, I think it's 33rd place to 64th place. You'll win $25, which is enough
Yeah.
that it's worth your time.
it's nice that they did that though,
Yeah,
instead of
I
just
like that too.
same. It feels like everyone's getting a little bit. Everyone's going to enjoy it. So even if you don't do that great, hey, you walked away with
Yeah,
something
you walk away with a consolation
for
prize.
the
It's
day,
like
and maybe just reinvest that into one of the NFTs.
that's probably what I would do.
And what I really think is going to be great that they're doing is this constant esports focus, this community faction.
Yeah, that's something that we haven't talked about a lot. They are developing this game with the framework to support esports right from the
Yes.
get-go. They've been talking to people who are like big in CS:GO,
But
like
they're
guilds and
humble
stuff like
about
that.
it. Like,
But they know that they want to make it so that if it does get big and it does get popular, that it has the infrastructure to support that.
yep. And
which is
actually,
so
on
cool.
our we did a coffee and crypto interview with Toby, one of the co-founders.
Yeah, that
And
was
when-
a fun one.
Yeah, and when we brought up the esports topic, I really liked his response because basically he said, "Look, we understand esports isn't just something you say you can do. It needs to be developed over time. It needs to be cultivated. There needs to be a community. There needs to be all these different layers." And I just really respected how humble they were about it. That even though they understand this is going to be one of their focuses, they also know it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, and it doesn't happen to every single project. You know what I mean?
That's right. And to see them working on that so intensely now, and like Harpa is another guy who heads the community development there. He's
yeah, I had a
fantastic.
chance to speak with him. He's really cool.
He's awesome. You could just tell he loves the project, and he's a big reason
Mhm.
we're even involved. And whenever I have a question, I usually go to him. But seeing how much work he's put in developing the community and bringing these factions in at such an early stage of the game, that's why as a game guild, I'm committed for us moving forward.
That
with
said
this.
two things to me. The first thing that it said to me is that they have a really strong team that knows what the heck they're doing. But the second thing that that said to me is that they were confident in their their minimum viable product.
Yep.
Way early on in the game, you know what I mean? Where a lot of projects they don't let people touch their
That's right.
thing until like beta. You know what
Yep.
I mean? So it's really exciting to us that we get to be a part of this early part of the process, and then they can take our feedback and sort of pivot the game a little bit here and there to make it really perfect.
Yeah, and I like being able to help them as a partnered faction in that way too, right? So like because we have the ability to play test early, we can work directly with their team. We have an open line of communication. It feels like we're contributing rather
I
than
think
just
that Harpa knows that us having access to the build of this game, there's going to be somebody who doesn't, who's going to look at our
That's
screen
exactly
and
what I
go,
was
"What
gonna
is
say.
that?" And then you can tell them, well, this is a new game that's coming out. And you don't have to mention anything about tokenomics or Web3 or anything like that because it's
Mhm.
not at that stage yet. You can just go, this is a really fun game. Gather your friends together. I mean, eventually they'll be able to, it'll be distributable and they'll be able to play it. And a lot of my friends are going, man, I really want to know what that game's about. It looks really cool.
right, and it's
So,
just a lot of fun.
That's huge. That's the roots of the hype, I guess you would call it.
There was a couple other things that really stood out to me in the white paper in particular. Like I liked how they showed the pathways of the tokenomics, the earnings. Like they really
they
drilled
displayed
down.
it as what we would call an ERD,
Yep.
which is what the document that somebody would use to design a database or to design a program. They're basically showing you a more simplified version of their design document for their program and go, this is how it's going to work.
And I really like that they were being transparent about
Me
that.
too.
Right? Especially someone like me with an engineering background. I love seeing the math and I love seeing the pathways.
Well,
and
it
all
also means that they're not treating their audience like a baby. I don't know
Yes.
there's no better way to put that, but a lot of the people who are in their audience who are reading that paper, they really want to know the nitty gritty about it.
Mhm.
And yeah, maybe a little bit at a higher level than the designers who are actually designing the game, but I want to know you know, what their functions are and where they go and what they do and all this other stuff, and it's all displayed there in plain text, which I like.
And I think one last thing we should cover, because I feel like this could go an hour. We have so much we could say about it. But their lore and the story, I want to touch on a little bit on that.
Yeah,
because it's inspired by the Lesser Book of Solomon.
The Lesser Keys of Solomon.
Keys of Solomon.
Which is a grimoire from thousands of years ago.
Which is Christianity demons, essentially. I know I'm probably not saying that right.
The book itself is a grimoire, which modernly you might even call it like a spell book, and basically it has a bunch of sigils inside that talk about the invocation of demons.
There we go. That's the best.
And the different demons that you might be able to invoke with said sigils.
And the fact that they're using those is really cool. So it has ties to like this real world. It's not this. What I'm thinking is going to happen is they're going to take inspiration from some of the lore of those demons and kind of incorporate it into the game. But the fact that they have that attachment just makes it more entertaining to me.
So for me as a gamer, in the last 20 years, there hasn't been a lot of games there's been a lot of games that come out that are gory. There's been a lot of games that come out they're savage, but there's not a lot of games that come out that really generate the sense of unholiness in me.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean? Because a lot of people are not super religious anymore. They don't really feel a holy versus unholy thing, but I don't know if you ever remember playing Diablo 2 for the first time. It was terrifying.
That's a good point.
Terrifying.
Yeah,
and it was not because of the gore. It was because of the bloody demons.
Yes.
You know what I mean? There's literal, like, Satan and hell is here. This is terrifying. And he goes, not even death can save you from me. Like, that's terrifying. You know what I mean?
Great point.
Other games don't do it quite as well. But this game, the Bornless, with their soundscape that they've spent a lot of time developing, and with the visuals and everything, it really feels unholy. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
I don't want to play it in a dark room.
Right? It's great. So I hope we were able to fill you guys in a lot of great information, some of the updates from the white paper. Stay tuned on our channel, of course, for a lot more Bornless information that's going to come up. Join us in our Discord if you're interested in joining our faction. And thanks so much for joining us today to talk about it. Yeah, it was great just to kind of, especially after they updated the white paper, now seeing kind of what's coming up over the next year or two.
They have a really documented plan.
Yes.
And at the beginning of it, as listed in the white paper, you play the game, it's exactly what they're planning. So I feel like the rest of the stuff that they're planning is going to go off of that hitch too.
Me too. So thanks so much for joining us today, guys. And until next time, cheers. Don't forget about our 1,000 subscriber giveaway where you can win $200. And if you need more information, be sure to join us on our Discord. See you there.